Welcome to the NewsHour. The two federal felony criminal cases against President-elect Donald Trump are being dropped. Special counsel Jack Smith filed motions today to end the case charging Trump with illegally holding classified documents and the other for his efforts to unlawfully overturn the 2020 presidential election. Smith defended the evidence in both cases and the decision to prosecute, but said today's expected move hinged on a long-standing Justice Department policy that a sitting president cannot face criminal prosecution. Smith left open the possibility the cases could be reopened when Trump leaves office. Trump lauded today's move, writing, "The cases were, quote, empty and lawless." Meanwhile, the president-elect continues to round out his cabinet, including some key economic appointments. He's chosen billionaire hedge fund manager Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary, and for Commerce, he's chosen Howard Lutnick, the CEO of financial services firm Cantor Fitzgerald and a big backer of tariffs. For more on what these choices mean for Trump's agenda, we are joined again by David Wessel. He's the director of the Hutchins Center on Fiscal and Monetary Policy at the Brookings Institution. David, so nice to see you again.
Good to be with you, William.
Let's talk a bit more about Scott Bessent. The markets and investors seem to be very excited about his pick. Why is that?
Yes, you could actually hear the sigh of relief from the markets that the president chose somebody like Scott Bessent, a hedge fund manager who actually could easily have been a Treasury Secretary in a more conventional Republican administration, somebody who seems to be a calm set of hands in a very, very fiery cabinet, if you don't mind the metaphor.
No, your metaphors always work for us. What is it about him, then, if he could fit into a Bush administration or a would-be Romney kind of administration, what is it that he brings that Trump seems to like?
Well, I think Donald Trump understands that he needs to have the financial markets on his side. He may not care about the models that we have at the Brookings Institution, but he cares about the stock and bond markets. And Scott Bessent he seems to have a pretty clear message. He's got this 3-3-3 plan. 3% growth, which is a little faster than we've had, but certainly could happen. 3% of GDP budget deficit, which would be heroic, half the current level of the deficit, and 3 million increase in the number of barrels of oil that we produce. So he's got kind of a shtick, and I think people feel comfortable with him, but I wonder whether he'll actually have as much influence with the president as the markets seem to be hoping.
The contrast to that would be Howard Lutnick at Commerce, who seems to be a little bit on the opposite side of things than his Treasury pick.
Right. So Howard Lutnick is a really interesting guy. His firm almost got wiped out in 9/11. He's very volatile. He's very outspoken. He would have been a pick that I think would have made people nervous. And as you point out, he's a big proponent of tariffs. Scott Bessent he's starting to mouth the tariffs are okay, but he talks about them as a negotiating tool, a lever. We're not going to do anything, radical in a hurry and stuff like that. So I begin to think it's a bit of a team of rivals. The Wall Street Journal described...
This is like Lincoln's famous sort of fractious cabinet
Exactly.
that served to be a strength, to have opposing viewpoints going at it.
Exactly. The Wall Street Journal explained the competition between Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick to be Treasury Secretary as a knife fight. So that's quite a way to start an administration with these two economic policymakers who clearly don't trust each other.
On that issue of tariffs, which is Trump's oft-stated belief that he will put tariffs on China and other nations if they don't conform to his economic policies, how likely is it that he will do that, and which of those men will come out on top in that argument?
Well, we don't really know. I mean, the question is, who will he listen to? And predicting that with Donald Trump is always hard. But worrying about the trade deficit and proposing tariffs has been something that Donald Trump has said for much of his political career, or even before he was a politician. So I suspect they will do something on tariffs. It would be embarrassing if they didn't. But the question is, will he do some little move and then we'll see what the other side does, or will he do something dramatic? One thing that's really important is the president has a lot of authority on tariffs, things he can do without the consent of Congress. So that means the only break on him will be Scott Bessent and the markets.
To this team of rivals, they're not in the cabinet, but we've also got Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are coming in with the pledge to chop chop, chop.
Right.
How do you see that playing out?
I think this is going to be incredibly good theater. We'll see what they actually do.
Good theater, but maybe not good economics?
Well, we certainly we have a big budget deficit problem, but it's really hard to fix if you say we want to cut taxes, we don't want to touch Social Security or Medicare. So that leaves a big chunk of the budget on the side. I am sure that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will propose some spending cuts. What I'm not so sure about is that Congress will go along with them. In the past, the history of these commissions is people who have been outside government say, you could cut this, you can cut that, you can cut this. And then when it gets to the Appropriations Committee in Congress, it's sort of like, well, maybe not
They say,
this.
we know who's really the boss.
Right, exactly. So I think it's going to be quite contentious. And I think the issue that Scott Bessent has is he's the chief bond salesman for the world's largest debtor. So if Congress and President Trump do things that explode the deficit beyond current projections, he's going to have a hard time managing that without seeing a big increase in interest rates, which of course will filter through the economy, raise mortgage rates, and could slow the economy down.
David Wessel, always great to have your counsel. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.